when, after 3 decades of marriage, my unfaithful wife admitted, "Yes, I was unfaithful, and I kept it from you that our 2 kids are biologically his. But he's been gone for years, and the children adore you and see you as their dad." I promptly expelled her from our home and initiated divorce proceedings, but 2 days later, a call from the authorities changed everything. Chapter 1. The revelation that broke everything. It was late, nearly midnight. The silence was so deep that even the refrigerator's hum seemed deafening. We'd just had a modest supper, and I was at the kitchen table, nursing a mug of tea, when she entered, hands clasped tightly, her gaze avoiding mine. "There's something I must confess," she murmured, her voice shaky. I thought it might be about finances or her work. After 30 years together, we'd navigated job losses, medical crises, and family turmoil, but nothing could brace me for what came next. "I was unfaithful," she whispered. "It happened long ago, and I concealed that our 2 children are biologically his." My breath caught in my throat. My grip on the mug tightened until I feared it would crack. She kept speaking, as if words could cushion the blow. "But he's been dead for years, and the kids love you. You're their father. Nothing needs to change." The words echoed in my mind like a cruel taunt. I rose slowly. No yelling, no smashing things, just a cold, measured calm. "Pack your belongings. You're leaving tonight." She stared, expecting me to relent, to laugh it off. I didn't. I watched her collect her things, still muttering justifications, until the door shut behind her. That night, I filed for divorce. 2 days later, I was beginning to find my footing again when my phone rang. It was the police. Chapter 2. The call that turned betrayal into something darker. The number was local but unknown. I nearly ignored it, but something urged me to pick up. "Mr. Carson?" the voice said. "This is Detective Malone from the county sheriff's office. We need you at the station. It concerns your wife and the man she was involved with." I clutched the phone. "He's dead. Has been for years." A pause. "That's part of the issue. We have reason to believe his death wasn't as straightforward as you were told." The word struck like a hammer. "Why are you contacting me?" "Because, Mr. Carson, your name keeps coming up." At the station, in a cramped interview room, Detective Malone slid a folder across the table. Inside were crime scene images, old reports, and letters. Letters from my wife to her lover, written 30 years ago, before our youngest was born. Some were affectionate, others dripped with contempt for me. Then came the bombshell. One letter spoke of how soon, very soon, we'll be together forever, and he'll be gone for good. Detective Malone leaned forward. "These were found in a storage locker rented in your wife's name. That locker also held a vial of medication, the same kind found in her lover's system when he died. The coroner's report from back then was vague, but new tests painted a different picture." My mouth went dry. "You think I was involved?" I asked. "Not quite. But it's possible she's been setting you up for decades, and now that you're divorcing, she might be preparing to act." This wasn't just infidelity. It was a deadly scheme, and my anger shifted from betrayal to survival. Chapter 3. The setup and the courtroom. 2 days later, my lawyer called. "She's filed an urgent motion," he said. "Claims you're violent, unstable, and even hints you were involved in her lover's death years ago." It was all clicking into place. She wasn't just ending our marriage. She wanted to destroy me entirely. My reputation, my finances, my bond with the kids. In court, she sat poised, dressed in somber black, clutching a tissue and her lawyer's arm like a grieving widow in a drama. Her attorney stood, voice oozing false concern. "Your Honor, my client fears for her safety and that of her children. Mr. Carson has been emotionally abusive, and there are serious questions about his role in the untimely death of her former partner." Murmurs spread through the room. She bowed her head, feigning distress, but stole a glance to gauge my reaction. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I passed a USB drive to my lawyer. "We've been busy since meeting Detective Malone." My attorney rose. "Your Honor, before addressing these baseless accusations, we have evidence that will reshape this case entirely." The judge, intrigued, nodded for him to proceed. The courtroom screen lit up. First came her letters, her handwriting, her signature, plotting to eliminate me so she could be with her lover. Then, modern toxicology reports linked her to the deadly substance. Finally, a recent video showed her in a cafe, telling a friend she could finally be rid of him, now that the case was reopened. The judge's face hardened. "We'll take a recess, and I'll confer with law enforcement immediately." She looked at me then, her eyes not triumphant but panicked. Chapter 4. Flipping the script. The recess dragged on for 2 hours. When the judge returned, Detective Malone was with him. Her polished nails dug into the defense table as she flinched at the sight. The judge's tone was stern. "This divorce hearing is paused until the criminal matters are resolved. Mrs. Carson, you'll remain in Detective Malone's custody for further investigation." She opened her mouth to protest, but Malone was already beside her. "Ma'am, come with us." As they escorted her out, she hissed just loud enough for me to hear. "This isn't finished." But it was. She just didn't realize it. Over the next week, my lawyer and I moved quickly. With the criminal case active, her access to our shared accounts was frozen, and her assets faced potential seizure due to the murder probe. Her false court claims unraveled, so I filed a defamation lawsuit. The potential damages could ruin her financially. I spoke to the children, calmly laying out the truth with evidence. At first, they were in shock. But the video of her laughing about framing me changed everything. My son muttered, "She's not who I thought." My daughter just sobbed and hugged me. Then came the final strike. I contacted the wealthy donors from her charity board days. When they learned she was under investigation for murder and deceit, her name was erased from every event and website in town. 2 months later, the charges were filed. Attempted murder against me, murder of her lover, and perjury. The woman who once taunted me with "you have no choice" was left with nothing. No home, no reputation, no freedom. Chapter 5. The decisive strike. The trial became the town's biggest news story in years. The courtroom was packed, reporters scribbling, cameras rolling, her former allies whispering in the back. I sat quietly in the second row, wearing the suit from our wedding day, not for nostalgia, but for irony. It once marked our start, now it signaled her downfall. The prosecution's case was ironclad. The letters, toxicology reports, and recent recordings painted her as a calculating schemer who believed she could outwit everyone. Her defense tried every tactic. "He's bitter. He's fabricating this. He's out for vengeance." But Detective Malone took the stand, methodically presenting every piece of evidence. Then came the bombshell. Bank transfers from her to a dubious consultant before her lover's death, and a recent attempt to hire the same person to target me. The jury's reaction was palpable: shock, disgust, heads shaking. The verdict was swift, guilty on all counts. The judge was unrelenting. "You built a facade of respectability while ruining lives in secret. This court sentences you to life without parole." Gasps filled the room. She searched for the children, but they weren't there. That was my final act of retribution. I'd convinced them not to attend, refusing to let her manipulate them for sympathy. Instead, they were at home, signing papers to take my last name. As the guards led her away, I stood, cameras turning to me. She once said I had no choice. I declared for the microphones. Turns out I did. The next day, her face was on every news outlet, not as the wife, mother, or philanthropist she pretended to be, but as a convicted murderer and liar. I walked out of the courthouse into the sunlight. Free. Epilogue. Rebuilding 6 months after the verdict. Life found a strange but comforting rhythm. The nightmares that once startled me awake had faded. Mornings began with the aroma of coffee and the quiet hum of a house that finally felt like mine. The children, my children, regardless of biology, came over every weekend. At first, our talks were tentative, like learning a new dialect. But laughter soon returned. My son asked me to help restore his old pickup. My daughter demanded I teach her my secret pancake recipe. One Sunday, she set out 2 plates and said softly, "Dad, I understand now. You were always the real parent." Those words erased 30 years of deception. Financially, I was secure. The divorce settlement was voided due to her fraud and conviction, and the defamation suit awarded me enough to clear the mortgage, fund the kids' education, and ensure a comfortable retirement. But the true treasure was peace. I began volunteering with a veteran support group, sharing my story not as one of bitterness, but as a lesson in resilience. Sometimes, I'd tell them, the best revenge isn't just winning. It's thriving so well that your enemies can't bear it. As for her, she was a shadow now, her name synonymous with disgrace. In prison, she was just another number. I never wrote, never visited, never responded to her rare letters. The last one read, "They told me the kids took your name. I guess you won." I didn't reply. I hadn't just won. I'd survived, rebuilt, and flourished. That was a victory she could never steal. Was this retribution entirely justified? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe this story is warranted, give it a like and share it with someone who needs this energy. Follow Lauren's Tales for more gripping stories of deception and justice. Because here, every lie meets its reckoning, and every betrayal casts a shadow. Stay vigilant, stay resilient, and stay tuned.